fog gate shimmers before you, that familiar translucent barrier between safety and certain death. Your heart pounds as you grip your controller, knowing that beyond lies another attempt at conquering Millennia Blade of Miquella. But this time, something's different. This time, you're not just another tarnish stumbling through the lands between with a cobbled-together mess of stats and equipment. This time, you've discovered the secret that separates the legends from the corpses, littering every boss arena across the Erdtree, Fara Missoula, and the Shadowlands beyond. You've mastered the art of the build. Welcome, fellow Tarnished, to Kian 7 Lore, where we delve deep into the mechanics, mysteries, and meta that define our favorite gaming worlds. Today, we're embarking on a journey through the evolved landscape of Elden Ring in 2025, exploring 9 of the most devastatingly effective, wildly entertaining, and surprisingly accessible builds that have emerged from 2 years of community refinement and the game-changing shadow of the Erdtree expansion. Whether you're a fresh-faced newcomer still getting lost in Limgrave, or a grizzled veteran who's conquered every Crucible night blindfolded, these builds represent the pinnacle of what's possible when you truly understand the intricate systems beneath Elden Ring's surface. The year 2025 finds us in a fascinating moment for Elden Ring's build crafting scene. Gone are the days when rivers of blood ruled every invasion and Comet Azure trivialized every boss. The meta has matured, evolved, and diversified in ways that would have seemed impossible during those chaotic early months of 2022. From Software's careful balance patches, combined with the wealth of new weapons, talismans, and mechanics introduced in Shadow of the Erdtree, have created an environment where creativity flourishes alongside optimization. The community has discovered synergies that the developers likely never imagined, pushing the boundaries of what these systems can achieve while maintaining that delicate balance between feeling overpowered and actually breaking the game. What makes a build truly exceptional in 2025 isn't just raw damage output or the ability to trivialize encounters, though we'll certainly explore builds capable of both. The best builds in the current meta offer something more valuable than pure numbers. They provide a complete gameplay experience, a way of engaging with Elden Ring's world that feels both powerful and purposeful. They transform the fundamental rhythm of combat, turning what might have been a grueling test of patience into a spectacular display of mechanical mastery. Most importantly, they're fun, offering that intoxicating sensation of growth and power that keeps us coming back to the lands between time and time again. As we explore these 9 builds together, you'll notice they span the entire spectrum of playstyles and skill requirements. Some reward aggressive players who thrive in the chaos of close combat, while others cater to the methodical strategist who prefers to control the battlefield from a distance. Several builds have been specifically refined to help newer players overcome the game's notorious difficulty curve without sacrificing the satisfaction of genuine achievement. Meanwhile, our more complex offerings will challenge even the most experienced Tarnished to master new techniques and timing windows they might never have considered. The transformation of Elden Ring's meta following the Shadow of the Erdtree expansion cannot be overstated. This wasn't just another content drop adding a few weapons and bosses to an existing framework. The DLC fundamentally altered how we approach build creation, introducing an entirely new tier of power scaling that made previously viable builds obsolete while simultaneously breathing new life into forgotten strategies. The addition of Erdtree fragments and their unique blessing system created a parallel progression path that exists alongside traditional leveling, allowing for builds that would have been impossibly stat-hungry in the base game. New talismans didn't just offer incremental improvements to existing strategies, they enabled entirely new archetypes that simply couldn't exist before. Perhaps most significantly, the community's understanding of Elden Ring's underlying mechanics has reached a level of sophistication that rivals any competitive game. Frame data has been meticulously documented. Damage formulas, reverse engineered, and every possible interaction between equipment, stats, and abilities cataloged with scientific precision. This wealth of knowledge, accumulated over thousands of collective hours of testing and experimentation, forms the foundation of every build we'll explore today. When I tell you that a particular weapon combo can output over 4,000 damage in a single rotation, that's not speculation or exaggeration. That's verified, reproducible fact backed by extensive community testing. Consider for a moment how the Blasphemous blade, a weapon that's been dominant since launch, has evolved in the current meta. What started as a simple faith-scaling greatsword with a powerful weapon skill has transformed into the cornerstone of an entire playstyle that combines healing, damage, and resource management in ways that make you virtually immortal in PvE content. The post-DLC scaling improvements didn't just make it hit harder, they fundamentally changed when and how you deploy its abilities. The interaction between its inherent healing properties and the new talismans from the DLC creates a feedback loop of sustainability that turns every encounter into a war of attrition you're guaranteed to win. This isn't the same weapon you might have experimented with 2 years ago. This is Blasphemous Blade 220, refined by thousands of hours of community optimization into something approaching perfection. The journey from struggling newcomer to build, crafting master mirrors the tarnished's own progression from maidenless wretch to Elden Lord. Each build we'll explore today represents a different path to that throne, a unique interpretation of what it means to achieve power in the lands between. Some embrace the raw, primal satisfaction of strength, wielding colossal weapons that flatten enemies with earth-shaking impacts. Others dance through combat with dexterous precision, their twin blades creating deadly whirlwinds that leave nothing standing. Magic users bend reality itself, combining sorceries and incantations in ways that blur the line between warrior and wizard. Status effect specialists turn the game's own systems against it, stacking poisons, bleeds, and frost in combinations that melt health bars faster than enemies can react. But before we dive into the specific builds that dominate the 2025 meta, it's worth acknowledging the philosophical shift that's occurred in how the community approaches build creation. Early Elden Ring was dominated by a mentality of finding the single most broken strategy and exploiting it until From Software inevitably nerfed it into oblivion. Remember the Hoarfrost Stomp meta? The Sword of Night and Flame's brief reign of terror? These builds were powerful, certainly, but they were also one-dimensional, offering little beyond their ability to trivialize content. The builds that thrive in 2025 are different. They're robust, adaptable systems that remain viable across different types of content and continue to function even when individual components get adjusted. They're built not on single points of failure, but on synergistic interactions between multiple elements that create emergent gameplay possibilities. This evolution reflects a maturing understanding of what makes Elden Ring special. The game was never meant to be solved with a single optimal strategy. It's a sandbox of intersecting systems that rewards creativity and experimentation. The best builds in 2025 embrace this philosophy, offering not just power but versatility, not just effectiveness but engagement. They make you a better player by forcing you to understand why they work, not just how to execute them. If you're finding this exploration valuable and want to join our growing community of tarnished scholars diving deep into the mechanics that make these games tick, consider subscribing to the channel. Your support helps us continue these investigations into gaming's most intricate systems, and trust me, we're just getting started with what 2025 has revealed about Elden Ring's true potential. Let's begin with a build that exemplifies everything the current meta represents: power, sustainability, accessibility, and devastating effectiveness across all content types. The Blasphemous Blade Immortal isn't just a build, it's a statement about what's possible when you fully understand Elden Ring's healing and damage systems. This faith-strength hybrid has survived every patch, every nerf, and every meta shift because it's built on fundamental principles that From Software seems unwilling or unable to change. The weapon itself scales beautifully with faith, reaching an S scaling that transforms your Sacred Seal's power into pure destructive force. But raw damage is only part of the story. Every kill with this weapon restores health, a seemingly simple mechanic that becomes absolutely broken when you realize it applies to every enemy felled by its devastating weapon skill, Taker's Flames. Picture this scenario. You're facing a room full of those irritating imp statues in a catacomb, the kind of encounter that typically demands careful positioning and resource management. With the Blasphemous Blade Immortal build, you simply unleash Taker's Flames, watching as the wave of fire reduces them all to ash while simultaneously healing you to full health. The skill costs a modest amount of FP, easily sustained with the right talisman setup, and its range extends far beyond what the animation suggests. But here's where the 2025 optimization really shines. By combining the Blasphemous Blade with specific talismans from the DLC, like the Blessed Blue Dew Talisman and the Two-Handed Sword Talisman, you create a perpetual motion machine of destruction and regeneration. The stat distribution for this build has been refined to scientific precision. You'll want exactly 54 Vigor to hit crucial health breakpoints with certain talisman combinations, 25 Mind for comfortable FP reserves, 30 Endurance to wear optimal armor while maintaining medium load, 40 Strength to meet weapon requirements and boost physical damage, 16 Dexterity for weapon prerequisites, 60 Faith for maximum scaling, and dump stats in Intelligence and Arcane. This distribution might seem oddly specific, and that's because it is. Community testing has revealed that these exact values create perfect breakpoints for surviving specific boss combos while maximizing damage output. Going to 55 Vigor, for instance, offers negligible returns compared to putting that point elsewhere, while 59 Faith misses a crucial scaling threshold that 60 provides. The equipment loadout extends far beyond just the weapon. Your armor should prioritize poise over pure defense, aiming for at least 56 poise to tank through smaller enemy attacks while channeling Taker's Flames. The Veteran set remains a popular choice, offering excellent poise-to-weight ratios, though the new Solitude set from the DLC provides interesting alternatives for those willing to sacrifice some physical defense for elemental resistances. Your Sacred Seal choice matters more than you might think. While the Erdtree seal offers the highest incantation scaling at high faith levels, the Godslayer seal actually provides better returns for the Black Flame incantations that complement this build perfectly. The synergy between Black Flame's percentage-based damage and the Blasphemous Blade's flat healing creates a rhythm of combat that feels almost musical in its execution. Talisman selection separates competent builds from truly optimized ones. The Shard of Alexander remains mandatory, boosting Taker's Flames damage by a substantial margin. The Fire Scorpion Charm adds another layer of fire damage amplification, though you'll need to account for its defense reduction in your Vigor calculations. The third slot traditionally went to the Ritual Pot Talisman, or Carrion Filigree Crest for FP management, but the Carrion Filigree Crest has emerged as a superior option, reducing skill FP costs by 25% for better efficiency. Your fourth slot remains flexible, with the Great Jar's Arsenal for armor flexibility, Dragon Crest Great Shield, Talisman for defense, or the new Blessed Blue Dew Talisman for passive FP regeneration, all being viable choices depending on the content you're facing. Combat strategy with this build transcends simple spam of the weapon skill. Against large bosses, you'll weave between Taker's Flames at mid-range and jumping heavy attacks up close, taking advantage of the weapon's excellent strength scaling for physical damage. The Black Flame incantations serve as your answer to highly mobile enemies that might dodge Taker's Flames, with Black Flame Ritual creating zones of denial and Black Flame Blade adding percentage-based damage to your melee swings. The healing from kills means you can play more aggressively than almost any other build, turning trades that would be suicidal for others into calculated risks that leave you healthier than when you started. Moving into our second build, we encounter something that represents the complete opposite end of the spectrum while being equally dominant in its chosen arena. The Lightning Perfumer build emerged from obscurity following specific buffs in patch 112 and has only grown stronger with each subsequent update. This Dexterity Faith hybrid leverages one of Elden Ring's most underutilized weapon classes to create a combat style that's part chemist, part divine warrior, and completely devastating in both PvE and PvP scenarios. The core concept revolves around the unique properties of perfume bottles, weapons that most players dismiss as gimmicks, but which hide incredible potential for those who understand their mechanics. Perfume bottles operate on fundamentally different rules than other weapons in Elden Ring. Their attacks create clouds that linger, deal damage over time, and can be modified by an entirely separate set of buffs and equipment than traditional weapons. The lightning perfume bottle specifically creates sparking clouds that proc lightning damage repeatedly, building up status effects and triggering on-hit abilities multiple times from a single attack. When you combine this with the proper stat distribution and equipment, you create a character that controls space like a sorcerer, while dealing damage like a quality build, all while maintaining the mobility and versatility that makes dexterity builds so appealing. The stat allocation for the Lightning Perfumer requires careful consideration of multiple scaling thresholds. You'll need 40 Vigor as an absolute minimum, though many experienced players push this to 50 for PvP viability. Mind sits at 30 to support the surprisingly FP-hungry perfume attacks and supplementary incantations. Endurance at 25 provides sufficient stamina for extended combat sequences while maintaining light load, crucial for the mobility this build demands. The controversial choice comes with strength, where you'll want exactly 16 to wield the Bolt of Grandsax as your secondary weapon, no more, no less. Dexterity pushes to 55 for optimal perfume scaling and casting speed, while Faith reaches 45 to maximize lightning incantation effectiveness. Intelligence and Arcane remain at base values unless you started as a class with higher defaults. The weapon setup for this build involves more complexity than simply equipping a perfume bottle and calling it a day. Your right hand primarily wields the Lightning Perfume bottle, upgraded to +10 and infused with the Rolling Sparks Ash of War for maximum lightning cloud generation. But the true secret lies in your offhand setup, where you'll alternate between the Gravelstone Seal for lightning incantation boosts and the Bolt of Grandsax for long-range precision strikes. The synergy between these weapons creates a combat flow that keeps opponents constantly guessing. Are you about to create a cloud of lightning that forces them to reposition? Launch a lightning spear from across the arena? Or close the distance for perfume bottle combos that melt health bars in seconds? The armor selection prioritizes mobility and style in equal measure, because let's be honest, if you're playing a perfumer, you want to look the part. The Perfumer set offers thematic consistency and surprisingly decent resistances, though mixing in pieces from the Spellblade set provides better optimization for the elemental damage focus. The key is maintaining light load, which offers a dramatic improvement to dodge distance and stamina regeneration that this build absolutely requires. You're not trying to tank hits. You're trying to never get hit in the first place, while maintaining constant pressure through strategic cloud placement and lightning strikes. Talisman Synergies for the Lightning Perfumer open up fascinating possibilities that weren't apparent until extensive community testing revealed hidden interactions. The Lightning Scorpion charm provides the obvious damage boost, but its interaction with perfume clouds means you're getting multiplicative benefits across multiple damage instances. The Godfrey icon boosts your charged perfume attacks and lightning spears equally, creating consistency across your entire kit. The third slot goes to the Shard of Alexander for spark, aromatic damage, while the fourth adapts to situations, Radagon icon for faster casting in PvP, Bullgoat's Talisman for poison PvE, or the new Perfumer's Talisman from the DLC that extends cloud duration by a crucial 2 seconds. The combat philosophy of the Lightning Perfumer revolves around space control and pressure maintenance. In PvE, you're creating overlapping clouds that turn boss arenas into electric death traps, forcing enemies to choose between engaging you in unfavorable positions or taking continuous damage while trying to reposition. The Bolt of Grandsax serves as your answer to enemies that try to maintain distance, its weapon skill capable of sniping targets from ranges that would make a pure caster jealous. Ancient Dragon's Lightning Strike becomes your panic button, creating massive areas of denial when surrounded or pressured. The beauty lies in how these elements flow together, each tool covering the weaknesses of the others while amplifying their strengths. PvP with this build transforms you into a psychological warfare specialist. The visual chaos of perfume clouds obscures your actual position while dealing legitimate damage that opponents can't simply ignore. The constant threat of Bolt of Gransack snipes forces aggressive players to approach through your clouds, taking damage and potentially getting caught by follow-up perfume combos. The delayed nature of lightning damage means you're often hitting opponents when they think they're safe, disrupting their timing and creating openings for devastating punishes. It's a build that rewards creativity and adaptation over mechanical execution, perfect for players who prefer to outthink rather than outmuscle their opponents. Our third build ventures into territory that many thought had been nerfed into obsolescence, only to discover that the community's ingenuity had transformed perceived weakness into overwhelming strength. The Bloodfiend's Nightmare represents the evolution of bleed builds in the post-nerf landscape of 2025, abandoning the crutch of rivers of blood for something far more interesting and ultimately more powerful. This strength arcane hybrid centers around the Bloodfiend's arm, a colossal weapon from the DLC that boasts an absolutely ridiculous 208 blood loss buildup when properly optimized. To put that in perspective, most enemies will hemorrhage in just 2 to 3 hits, turning every encounter into a race to see whether the flat damage or the percentage-based bleed explosion kills them first. The journey to discovering this build's true potential involved months of community experimentation with what initially seemed like an underwhelming weapon. The Bloodfiend's arm appeared to be just another colossal weapon with slightly higher bleed values. Interesting, but not revolutionary. Then someone discovered that its unique scaling with arcane didn't follow the normal rules for colossal weapons. Where most strength weapons see diminishing returns on arcane investment for status buildup, the Bloodfiend's arm continues scaling linearly well into the 60s and 70s. Combined with specific talismans and buffs that multiply this base value, you create a weapon that applies bleed faster than dedicated bleed weapons while hitting with the raw power of an ultra greatsword. Statistical optimization for the Bloodfiend's Nightmare requires balancing the competing demands of strength for base damage, arcane for bleed buildup, and the fundamental survivability stats that keep you alive long enough to swing your massive weapon. You'll want 50 vigor minimum, with many players pushing to 55 for crucial survival breakpoints against DLC bosses. Mind can remain at base values, since this build relies primarily on basic attacks rather than weapon skills. Endurance needs to reach at least 35, potentially up to 40, to wear the heavier armor sets that provide the poise necessary for trading hits. Strength hits its first soft cap at 54, providing excellent base damage while leaving room for arcane investment. Dexterity stays at base values unless needed for specific weapon requirements. The key investment comes in arcane, which you'll push to 45 minimum, with optimal builds reaching 60 for maximum bleed buildup. Intelligence remains untouched, a dump stat that serves no purpose in this blood-soaked build. Equipment selection extends beyond just wielding the Bloodfiend's arm and calling it a day. Your armor needs to provide at least 101 poise to achieve crucial hyper-armor breakpoints with colossal weapons, meaning heavy sets like the Bull Goat or Veteran's armor become mandatory rather than optional. The trade-off in mobility is offset by your ability to simply tank through enemy attacks while your own swings guarantee favorable trades. Your offhand remains empty most of the time, as two-handing the Bloodfiend's arm provides significant damage and status build-up bonuses. However, keeping a backup seal for buffing incantations or a crossbow for pulling enemies adds tactical flexibility without compromising your core strategy. The Talisman loadout for this build went through numerous iterations before the community settled on the current optimal setup. Lord of Blood's Exaltation triggers every time you proc bleed, providing a massive attack boost that synergizes perfectly with the rapid hemorrhaging this build causes. The Rotten Winged Sword insignia rewards successive hits, which your colossal weapon combos naturally achieve. The two-handed sword talisman from the DLC provides a flat damage boost when two-handing, which you'll be doing constantly. The fourth slot adapts to content. Millicent's prosthesis for even more successive hit damage, Greatjar's arsenal for armor flexibility, or the Godskin swaddling cloth for sustainability in longer encounters. Combat execution, with the Bloodfiend Nightmare, requires understanding the rhythm of colossal weapons while adapting to the unique properties of bleed procs. Your basic combo of running heavy attack into standing heavy attack will hemorrhage most enemies before they can respond, dealing massive burst damage that trivializes even late-game threats. Against bosses, you're looking for openings that allow for charged heavy attacks, which apply enormous bleed buildup while dealing crushing physical damage. The key insight is that you're not trying to be fancy or technical. You're leveraging the mathematical certainty that your attacks will cause hemorrhaging faster than enemies can clear the buildup, turning every hit into a ticking time bomb. The psychological impact of this build in PvP cannot be understated. Opponents see a colossal weapon and expect slow, telegraphed attacks they can easily punish. They don't expect that weapon to apply, bleed faster than dual katanas while hitting hard enough to two-shot them, even without the hemorrhage proc. The hyper armor from your attacks means you can trade favorably with almost any build, while the threat of instant blood loss forces opponents into defensive patterns that you can exploit. It's a build that punishes both aggression and passivity equally, creating lose-lose scenarios that frustrate even experienced players. Transitioning from the brutal simplicity of blood and strength, our fourth build explores the elegant synergy between intelligence and frost, creating a battlefield controller that would make any strategist proud. The Frost Knight Commander represents a complete reimagining of intelligence builds, abandoning the traditional pure caster approach for a hybrid that combines the best aspects of melee combat and sorcery. This build emerged from the community's recognition that Frost, as a status effect, had been dramatically undervalued compared to bleed and poison. When properly built around, Frostbite offers percentage-based damage, defense reduction, and stamina regeneration penalties that cripple enemies while amplifying your own damage output. The cornerstone of this build lies in understanding how frost accumulation actually works in Elden Ring's engine. Unlike bleed, which provides a single burst of damage, frost creates a debuff state that makes enemies take increased damage from all sources for a significant duration. This means that proccing frost early in a fight fundamentally changes the mathematics of the encounter, turning your moderate damage into devastating strikes. The Darkmoon Greatsword serves as your primary weapon, its unique properties allowing it to build frost through both physical strikes and magical projectiles. But the true innovation comes from combining this with specific sorceries and equipment that multiply frost buildup beyond what seems reasonable. Your stat distribution needs to support both the intelligence requirements of high-level sorceries and the strength demands of greatsword combat. Vigor reaches 45 for survivability, with some players pushing to 48 for specific breakpoints. Mind requires significant investment at 35 to support the FP costs of both weapon skills and sorceries. Endurance at 28 provides sufficient stamina for extended combat while maintaining medium load with appropriate armor. Strength needs exactly 16 to wield the Darkmoon Greatsword, not a point more. Dexterity can remain at base values unless you need specific requirements. Intelligence pushes to the soft cap of 70, transforming both your sorceries and weapon scaling into instruments of devastation. Faith and Arcane remain untouched, unnecessary for this focused build. The equipment loadout showcases the versatility that makes this build so effective across different content types. Your primary weapon, the Darkmoon Greatsword, should be fully upgraded and paired with sorceries that complement its frost focus. Adula's Moonblade creates sweeping frost waves that catch multiple enemies, while Zamor Ice Storm provides area denial and continuous frost buildup. The Carrion Regal Scepter in your offhand boosts sorcery effectiveness while maintaining the option to two-hand your greatsword for maximum physical damage. The Snow Witch Hat provides a hidden bonus to frost sorcery damage that stacks multiplicatively with other buffs, making it essentially mandatory despite its low defense values. Armor selection balances defense with the maintenance of medium load, crucial for the mobility this hybrid build requires. The Spellblade set offers bonuses to both physical and magical damage after casting sorceries, creating a natural synergy with your combat flow. Alternatively, mixing high poise pieces with the Snow Witch hat creates a more defensive setup that can trade hits when necessary. The key is finding your personal comfort zone between survivability and mobility, as this build needs to seamlessly transition between ranged casting and melee combat. The Talisman configuration for the Frost Knight Commander went through extensive iteration before the community settled on the current optimization. The Magic Scorpion Charm boosts both your sorcery damage and the magical portion of the Dark Moon Greatsword's attacks. The Godfrey icon enhances charged attacks and sorceries equally, providing consistency across your entire arsenal. The Shard of Alexander amplifies the devastating Moonlight Greatsword skill, turning it into a boss-melting tool. The fourth slot remains flexible. Primal Glintstone Blade for FP efficiency, Graven. Mass Talisman for pure sorcery damage, or the Spelldrake Talisman +3 for frost resistance negation, amplifying build-up indirectly. Combat philosophy with this build revolves around controlling engagement distance and capitalizing on frost procs from massive damage windows. You'll open most encounters at range, using Adula's Moonblade or Glintstone Icecrag to build frost while maintaining safe positioning. Once frost procs, you close distance for devastating melee combos with the Dark Moon Greatsword, its charged heavy attacks dealing absurd damage to frost-afflicted enemies. The Moonlight Greatsword skill serves as both a ranged option and a close-range nuke, its projectile passing through enemies while leaving trails of frost. The key is recognizing that you're not just a caster with a backup weapon or a strength build with some spells, you're a true hybrid that excels at both ranges equally. The fifth build on our journey represents pure mechanical poetry in motion, a whirling dervish of death that turns Elden Ring's combat into something resembling a character action game. The Twin Dancer build emerged from the community's discovery that certain DLC weapons had frame data that completely broke established rules about weapon speed and recovery. The Ashen Dancer Twin Blade, when properly optimized and paired with specific talismans, achieves attack speeds that shouldn't be possible in Elden Ring's engine. This pure dexterity build abandons all pretense of magic or status effects, instead pursuing the simple goal of hitting enemies more times per second than they can possibly respond to. The mathematical foundation of this build rests on understanding attack speed buffs. These stack multiplicatively, not additively, in certain circumstances. The Ashen Dancer Twin Blade's unique moveset includes attacks that count as both light and heavy attacks simultaneously for the purpose of talisman triggers, meaning you're activating multiple damage buffs with every swing. When combined with proper timing and positioning, you create an offensive pressure that feels more like Devil May Cry than Dark Souls, maintaining essentially infinite combo strings that juggle enemies until they die. Stat allocation for the Twin Dancer pushes dexterity to its absolute limits while maintaining the bare minimum in other areas for survival. Vigor reaches 40, the absolute minimum for in-game content, with skilled players sometimes dropping to 35 to squeeze out more damage. Mind remains at base values, since this build uses virtually no FP outside of occasional weapon skills. Endurance requires heavy investment at 40 to support the stamina demands of continuous attacking, with some players pushing to 45 for specific combo extensions. Strength stays at base values unless needed for weapon requirements. Dexterity ascends to 80, the hard cap where scaling finally stops providing meaningful returns. Intelligence, faith, and arcane remain untouched, unnecessary for this focused physical build. The weapon configuration showcases the elegant simplicity of this approach. You'll dual-wield Ashen Dancer Twin Blades, both upgraded to +25, creating a whirlwind of attacks that never stops. The Power Stance moveset for Twin Blades includes multi-hit attacks that proc on, hit effects multiple times per swing, turning simple button presses into elaborate combat sequences. The Blazing Tempest weapon skill transforms you into a spinning tornado of death, dealing massive damage while maintaining mobility. Some players keep a backup Nakakiba or Uchigatana for specific situations requiring more reach, but the core gameplay revolves entirely around your twin blade mastery. Armor becomes almost irrelevant for this build, as you're relying entirely on not getting hit rather than absorbing damage. The Black Knife set offers silence and improved dodging, though many players prefer the fashionable Ronin set, or simply whatever looks coolest while maintaining light load. The key is staying under 30% equipment load for maximum dodge distance and stamina regeneration, crucial for maintaining your offensive pressure. You're not trying to trade hits, you're trying to never stop attacking long enough for enemies to counter. Talisman selection transforms this from a good build into something approaching broken. The Rotten Winged Sword insignia provides escalating damage with successive hits, which you'll be landing constantly. Millicent's Prothesis adds another layer of successive hit damage while boosting dexterity. The Guardskin Swaddling Cloth provides healing on successive hits, turning your offense into defense. The fourth slot typically goes to the Great Jar's arsenal for equipment flexibility, or the new Blade Dance Talisman from the DLC that reduces stamina consumption for dual-wielded attacks by 20%. The combat execution requires understanding that you're not playing Elden Ring's normal game of careful positioning and punish windows. You're playing a completely different game, where offense is defense, where the best way to avoid damage is to never stop dealing it. Your basic combo chain of light. Light, heavy light can be extended indefinitely with proper stamina management, stunning enemies through sheer hit frequency. Against bosses, you're looking for any opening to begin your assault, then maintaining pressure through dodge cancels and positioning adjustments that keep you in range while avoiding attacks. It's a build that rewards mechanical skill over strategic planning, perfect for players who want to feel like an anime protagonist cutting through hordes of enemies. PvP with this build creates some of the most spectacular displays of combat prowess possible in Elden Ring. Your ability to maintain pressure means that one mistake from your opponent often leads to their death, as they simply can't escape your combo strings. The visual spectacle of dual twin blades spinning creates confusion and intimidation that disrupts opponent timing. However, this build requires genuine skill to execute properly, as you have essentially no defensive options beyond dodging. It's high-risk, high-reward gameplay that separates skilled players from button mashers instantly. Our sixth build returns to the classical Paladin archetype, but reimagines it through the lens of 2025's evolved meta. The Holy Paladin 2.0 transcends the traditional sword and board setup, instead wielding the devastating Euporia Twin Blade alongside the Sword of Light in a configuration that provides both incredible damage and surprising support utility. This faith-strength hybrid emerged from the speedrunning community's discovery that certain faith weapons had hidden mechanics that made them exponentially more powerful when used in specific combinations. The result is a build that can solo the hardest content while simultaneously being the ultimate cooperative partner. The philosophical approach behind this build recognizes that faith builds in Elden Ring were always intended to be more than just lightning and fire damage. They represent divine power, the ability to both heal and harm, to protect and punish. The Holy Paladin 2.0 embodies this duality, seamlessly transitioning between devastating offensive combos and clutch support plays that save entire raid attempts. The Euporia Twin Blade's unique mechanic of building holy damage with successive hits synergizes perfectly with faith scaling, while the Sword of Light provides ranged options and burst damage that complement the Twin Blade's sustained assault. Your statistical foundation requires careful balancing of faith for scaling, strength for weapon requirements, and the survivability stats that let you stand in the front lines where paladins belong. Vigor reaches 50, non-negotiable for a build that's expected to tank hits for the team. Mind at 30 provides sufficient FP for both weapon skills and support incantations. Endurance pushes to 35 to support heavier armor while maintaining medium load. Strength reaches 30 to properly wield your weapons and provide decent physical scaling. Dexterity needs exactly 16 for the Euporia Twin Blade, not a point more. Faith ascends to 65, approaching the soft cap while leaving room for other stats. Intelligence and Arcane remain at base, unnecessary for this divine warrior. Equipment selection emphasizes versatility and adaptation to different scenarios. The Euphoria Twin Blade serves as your primary weapon, its holy damage ramping, creating devastating burst windows. The Sword of Light occupies your second slot, providing ranged attacks and area control through its unique skill. Your Sacred Seal choice matters significantly, the Erdtree Seal for maximum healing potency, or the Gravelstone Seal when focusing on offensive miracles. The ability to switch between these configurations mid-combat based on team needs separates good paladins from great ones. Armor selection for the Holy Paladin 2.0 prioritizes a balance of defense, poise, and holy aesthetic. The Crucible Tree set offers excellent protection and poise while maintaining the religious warrior theme. Alternatively, mixing pieces from the Tree Knight set with the Radon Soldier Gauntlets creates optimal poise, breakpoints while maintaining Fashion Soul's integrity. The goal is achieving at least 76 poise to tank through most standard attacks, while casting incantations or charging heavy attacks. The Talisman configuration underwent extensive testing to find the perfect balance between offense and support. The Sacred Scorpion Charm boosts holy damage from both weapons and incantations. The Shard of Alexander enhances weapon skills, crucial for both the Euphoria Spinning Assault and the Sword of Light's projectiles. The Old Lord's Talisman extends buff duration, essential for maintaining Golden Vow and other support incantations. The fourth slot adapts to situations. Draconcrest Greatshield for tanking, Godfrey Icon for charged incantations, or the Immunizing Horn Charm for status resistance during heals. Combat strategy varies dramatically between solo and cooperative play. When alone, you're leveraging the Euphoria Twin Blade's ramping holy damage to create burst windows that melt bosses, while the Sword of Light handles groups and maintains pressure at range. Your incantation loadout focuses on buffs like Golden Vow and Flame. Grant Me Strength with Black Flame for percentage-based damage against tanky enemies. In cooperation, your role shifts to frontline support, using Erdtree Heal and Lord's Divine Fortification to keep teammates alive while still contributing significant damage. The ability to pivot between these roles mid-fight based on team needs makes you invaluable in any group composition. The seventh build we're exploring represents one of the most dramatic redemption stories in Elden Ring's meta history. The Poison Flower Assassin emerged from the ashes of poison builds that everyone had written off as unviable, transformed by the discovery of synergies that multiply poison damage beyond anything previously thought possible. This arcane dexterity hybrid centers around a katana like the Uchigatana infused with the poison flower, Bloom's Twice Ash of War from the DLC, a weapon whose unique properties turn the slow death of poison into rapid, burst-oriented gameplay that rivals Bleed builds for sheer killing speed. The breakthrough came when the community discovered that certain combinations of equipment and talismans didn't just add poison buildup, they multiplied it exponentially through hidden interactions. The poison flower blooms. Twice doesn't just apply poison, it applies a unique, deadly poison, status that deals damage 3 times faster than normal poison. When combined with the venomous fang and specific talismans, you create poison clouds that instantly apply multiple stacks of this deadly poison, turning enemies into ticking time bombs that explode in seconds rather than minutes. Stat optimization for this build requires understanding that you're not just building for poison, you're building for a complete combat system that happens to use poison as its primary damage source. Vigor reaches 45 for survivability in both PvE and PvP scenarios. Mind at 25 provides sufficient FP for weapon skills and the occasional spell or incantation. Endurance at 30 supports the aggressive playstyle this build demands while maintaining medium load. Strength remains at base values unless required for specific weapons. Dexterity pushes to 50 for katana scaling and attack speed. Intelligence and faith stay at base levels. Arcane reaches 55. The sweet spot for poison build-up scaling before diminishing returns becomes severe. The weapon loadout showcases the sophistication of modern poison builds. Your primary weapon, the Poison Flower Blooms Twice, creates poison clouds on heavy attacks that linger and stack poison faster than enemies can cure it. The venomous fang in your offhand adds another layer of poison application, while providing parrying options for skilled players. Some practitioners keep a serpent bone blade as backup for enemies resistant to poison. It's deadly poison, applying even to typically immune enemies. The synergy between these weapons creates a combat flow where every attack contributes to an escalating damage, over time effect that overwhelms enemy healing. Armor selection emphasizes mobility and style over pure defense, as this build relies on applying poison quickly, then avoiding retaliation while it does its work. The mushroom set provides poison-related bonuses that stack with your other equipment, though many players prefer the aesthetic of the black knife set or bandit set while maintaining light load. The key is staying mobile enough to apply poison and retreat, turning fights into battles of attrition you're guaranteed to win. Talisman selection for the poison flower. Assassin reveals the hidden mechanics that make this build viable. The rotten-winged sword. Insignia doesn't just boost successive attacks, it multiplies poison buildup on multi-hit weapon skills. The Kindred of Rot's exaltation triggers on poison procs, providing massive damage boosts that synergize with your constant poison application. The Mushroom Crown Helmet, while technically not a talisman, provides another multiplicative bonus to poison damage. The fourth talisman slot goes to either the Godskin Swaddling Cloth for sustain, or the new Toxic Talisman from the DLC that causes poison to spread between nearby enemies. Combat execution requires understanding that you're not trying to kill enemies directly with your weapon attacks. You are applying multiple instances of deadly poison as quickly as possible, then maintaining safe distance while the accumulated damage overwhelms them. Your heavy attacks with the poison flower blooms twice create lingering clouds that continue applying poison even after you've disengaged. The weapon skill, Poison Flower Explosion, creates a massive poison burst that can instantly apply deadly poison to entire groups. Against bosses, you are looking for openings to apply poison, then switching to evasive maneuvers while maintaining occasional hits to refresh the status. It's a build that rewards patience and positioning over aggressive rushing. The 8th build on our exploration embraces the purest expression of strength in Elden Ring, refined and elevated by 2 years of community optimization. The Colossal Bonk Lord represents the evolution of Unga Bunga gameplay, transforming what many consider the game's simplest playstyle into something approaching an art form. This pure strength build centers around the new DLC Colossal weapons that redefined what raw physical damage could achieve, particularly the Giant Crusher. The beauty of this build lies not in its complexity, but in its absolute mastery of fundamentals. Every point of optimization has been directed toward a single goal, making your hits count so decisively that you only need a few of them. The Stonebreaker's Oath weighs more than some player characters, requires strength levels that would make Godfrey himself impressed, and swings with all the speed of continental drift. But when it connects, the results are nothing short of biblical. We're talking about attack ratings that push past 5,500 with proper buffs, capable of 4-shotting endgame bosses and 1-shotting invaders who thought their 60 vigor would save them. The revelation that transformed strength builds from meme to meta came with the understanding that poise damage scales exponentially with weapon weight, in ways the community hadn't fully appreciated. The Stonebreaker's Oath doesn't just deal massive health damage, it breaks enemy poise so thoroughly that even bosses designed to be unstaggerable can be locked into critical hit chains. Combined with the new stance-breaking talismans from the DLC, you create situations where enemies literally cannot act between your attacks, trapped in an endless cycle of staggers until death mercifully claims them. Your stat distribution for the Colossal Bonk Lord abandons all pretense of versatility in favor of pure, overwhelming power. Vigor pushes to 60, the absolute maximum, because you're going to be trading hits and you need the health pool to survive it. Mind remains at absolute base values. You don't need FP when every problem can be solved with bonking. Endurance requires massive investment at 45 to 50, supporting both the stamina demands of colossal weapons and the equipment load of wearing the heaviest armor in the game. Strength ascends to 80, the hard cap where even the generous strength scaling finally admits defeat. Every other stat remains at starting values, unnecessary complications to the simple truth that strength solves everything. The equipment philosophy embraces the aesthetic of overwhelming physical presence. The Stonebreaker's Oath requires both hands to wield effectively, its two-handed moveset unlocking the true potential of colossal weapons. Your armor selection prioritizes maximum poise and defense, with the full Bullgoat set, representing the pinnacle of, I don't care what you hit me with, I'm going to hit you harder. The 133 poise this provides means you can tank through literally any attack in the game while completing your own swings. Some players mix in pieces from the new Titan set from the DLC for even higher resistances, though the Fashion Souls community remains divided on whether looking like a walking fortress enhances or detracts from the Bonk Lord aesthetic. Talisman optimization for this build went through surprising iterations before settling on the current configuration. The Giant's Talisman from the DLC increases poise damage by 20%, turning your already devastating stance breaks into guaranteed criticals. The Axe Talisman boosts charged heavy attacks, your primary damage source, by a substantial margin. The Great Jar's arsenal becomes essentially mandatory to support your equipment load requirements. The fourth slot adapts between the Dragoncrest Great Shield Talisman for maximum physical defense or the new Stonebreaker Talisman that causes heavy attacks to create shockwaves, dealing additional AoE damage. The combat methodology couldn't be simpler if it tried, yet achieving mastery requires understanding spacing and timing at a level that rivals any technical build. Your entire game plan revolves around charged heavy attacks, the slow wind-up serving as both threat and promise of devastation. Against groups, a single charged heavy can clear entire rooms through sheer AoE coverage. Against bosses, you're looking for those precious openings that allow you to complete a charged heavy, breaking their stance and opening them for a critical hit that often deals more damage than entire combos from other builds. The jump attack serves as your faster option, still devastatingly powerful while being quick enough to punish shorter openings. What makes this build particularly satisfying in the current meta is how it completely ignores many of the game's complex systems. Status effects? Irrelevant when enemies die in 3 hits. Magic resistance? Doesn't matter when you're dealing pure physical damage. Complex positioning requirements? You stand in front of the enemy and bonk them until they stop moving. It's a build that strips Elden Ring down to its most fundamental level. Hit the enemy harder than they hit you, repeat until victorious. The fact that this approach remains not just viable but optimal in certain situations speaks to From Software's commitment to supporting diverse playstyles. Our 9th and final build represents the ultimate expression of indecision transformed into strength. The Spellblade Virtuoso emerged from players who couldn't choose between intelligence and dexterity builds, so they chose both and discovered something greater than either alone. This hybrid leverages the new understanding of how weapon buffs and sorceries interact, creating a combat style that seamlessly flows between devastating melee combos and reality-warping magic. The build centers around weapons that scale with both intelligence and dexterity equally, particularly the Wing of Astal and the Death Ritual Spear, creating a toolkit that has an answer for literally every situation. The mathematical breakthrough that enabled this build came from discovering that certain weapon skills count as both physical attacks and sorceries, simultaneously for buff purposes. This means a single attack can trigger melee talismans, sorcery talismans, and on-hit effects all at once, creating multiplicative damage scenarios that shouldn't exist. When you combine this with the ability to switch between pure casting and pure melee as situations demand, you create a character that embodies the true battle mage fantasy, equally deadly with sword and spell, master of both physical and magical combat. Stat allocation for the Spellblade Virtuoso requires careful optimization to hit crucial breakpoints in both damage types. Vigor reaches 42, a specific breakpoint that survives certain one-shot combos with appropriate talismans. Mind pushes to 38, supporting both frequent spellcasting and weapon skill usage. Endurance at 25 provides sufficient stamina while maintaining medium load with lighter armor. Strength remains at base values unless specific weapon requirements demand otherwise. Dexterity reaches 40, providing excellent weapon scaling and casting speed. Intelligence matches dexterity at 40 initially, though many players eventually push both to 50 for optimal scaling. Faith and Arcane remain untouched, unnecessary complications to an already complex build. The weapon arsenal showcases the versatility that defines this playstyle. The Wing of Astal serves as your primary weapon, its unique skill, Nebula creating delayed explosions that combo into melee attacks beautifully. The Death Ritual Spear offers a different approach, its Ghost Flame ignition providing both damage and area control. Your catalyst choice between the Carrion Regal Scepter for maximum sorcery scaling or the Prince of Death's Staff for its unique intelligence. Faith scaling opens different spell options. The ability to switch between these configurations mid-combat based on enemy resistances and positioning requirements creates a dynamic gameplay experience that never grows stale. Spell selection becomes an art form with this build, as you're not just picking the highest damage options, but creating a toolkit that complements your melee capabilities. Carrion Slicer serves as your close-range option, dealing shocking damage with proper talismans while maintaining the speed of a straight sword. Adula's Moonblade provides mid-range sweeping attacks that combo naturally into weapon skills. Loretta's Mastery offers long-range sniping that forces enemies to close distance into your optimal range. The key is understanding that your spells aren't separate from your melee combat. They're part of a unified system where each element covers the weaknesses of the others. Armor selection prioritizes fashion and casting bonuses over pure defense, as this build relies on versatility rather than tanking hits. The Spellblade set provides bonuses after using skills, which you'll be doing constantly. Alternatively, mixing pieces from the Snow Witch set with lighter armor maintains mobility while providing magical bonuses. The goal is maintaining medium load for optimal mobility while having enough poise to complete crucial spell cast under pressure. Talisman configuration for the Spellblade Virtuoso underwent extensive refinement to find the perfect balance. The Magic Scorpion Charm boosts both your sorceries and the magical portion of your weapon damage. The Shard of Alexander enhances weapon skills, crucial for both Nebula and Ghost Flame ignition. The Graven Mass Talisman amplifies sorcery damage for your ranged options. The fourth slot remains highly flexible. Radagon Icon for faster casting, Godfrey Icon for charged spells and attacks, or the Magic Scorpion Charm for hybrid magic physical boosts. Combat philosophy with this build transcends the usual paradigms of range management and opening punishment. You're creating a constant flow between different combat states, using spells to create openings for melee attacks, then using melee pressure to create space for casting. The Wing of Astal's Nebula creates delayed explosions that you can use to cover your own advance or retreat. Carrion Slicer combos directly into weapon attacks, creating mix-ups that confuse both AI and human opponents. The Death Ritual. Spear's Ghost Flame creates zones of control that funnel enemies into your kill zones. It's a build that rewards creativity and adaptation, where the optimal solution changes moment to moment based on positioning, resources, and enemy behavior. Now that we've explored each of these 9 builds in detail, it's worth examining the universal principles that make them all function at the highest level. Build optimization in 2025's Elden Ring isn't just about finding the highest damage numbers or the fastest kill times. It's about understanding the intricate web of systems that govern combat and character progression, then exploiting the interactions between these systems to create something greater than the sum of its parts. Every successful build we've discussed shares certain fundamental characteristics that separate them from the countless failed experiments littering the community's collective memory. The first universal principle is the concept of breakpoints, those specific stat values where sudden jumps in effectiveness occur. Vigor at 40, 50, and 60 doesn't just provide linear health increases. These values represent survival thresholds for specific boss combos and PvP scenarios. Understanding that 39 Vigor means death to Millennia's Waterfowl dance, while 40 Vigor means survival with 1 HP remaining transforms how you approach stat allocation. Similarly, Poise breakpoints at 51, 76, 101, and 133 don't just provide incremental improvements to hyper armor. They represent fundamental changes in which attacks you can tank while maintaining your own offensive pressure. The second principle revolves around multiplicative versus additive stacking, perhaps the most important mathematical concept in build optimization. When the Lightning Scorpion Charm increases lightning damage by 12%, and the Shard of Alexander increases skill damage by 15%, using a lightning-based weapon skill doesn't just deal 27% more damage. These multipliers stack multiplicatively, creating scenarios where properly configured builds deal double or triple the damage of unoptimized versions. Understanding which buffs stack additively versus multiplicatively, and more importantly, which combinations create unexpected multiplicative interactions, separates competent builders from true theory crafters. Resource management represents the third pillar of optimization, extending far beyond simple FP and stamina conservation. The best builds create resource loops where spending resources generates returns that exceed the initial investment. The Blasphemous blade healing on kills means you can trade health for aggressive positioning, knowing you'll recover it immediately. The Godskin swaddling cloth providing healing on successive hits turns stamina spent on attacks into health recovery. These synergies transform resource management from a limiting factor into an enabler of aggressive, dominant playstyles. The fourth principle addresses the fundamental question of specialization versus versatility. Early Elden Ring building philosophy emphasized pure specialization, maximize one damage type and ignore everything else. The 2025 meta has revealed that intelligent versatility often outperforms pure specialization, not by doing everything adequately, but by excelling in complementary areas that cover each other's weaknesses. The Spellblade Virtuoso doesn't just split between intelligence and dexterity, it leverages the synergies between them to create situations where both are stronger together than either would be alone. Talisman synergy deserves special attention as the fifth principle of optimization. The 4 talisman slots don't just provide 4 independent bonuses, they create a build identity that fundamentally changes how your character functions. The difference between a properly optimized talisman loadout and a random collection of good. Talismans can be a 50% or greater difference in effective combat power. More importantly, certain talisman combinations unlock entirely new playstyles that wouldn't be viable without their specific interactions. The sixth principle involves understanding the difference between theoretical and practical optimization. A build that deals maximum damage under perfect conditions might be inferior to one that deals consistent damage under realistic conditions. This is why the Colossal Bonk Lord remains viable despite having lower DPS than faster weapons. Its practical damage, accounting for stance breaks and the ability to trade hits, exceeds its theoretical limitations. Similarly, builds that require frame-perfect execution might look impressive in highlight videos but prove frustrating in actual gameplay. As we approach the conclusion of our journey through Elden Ring's evolved meta, it's worth reflecting on how far we've come from those early days of 2022. The game that once seemed solved, where rivers of blood and Moonveil dominated every encounter, has blossomed into one of the richest build-crafting ecosystems in gaming history. Each patch, each discovery, each moment of community innovation has added layers of complexity that reward deeper understanding while maintaining accessibility for newcomers willing to learn. The builds we've explored today represent not just powerful configurations of stats and equipment, but philosophies of play, expressions of creativity that turn Elden Ring's challenging world into a playground for mechanical mastery. The impact of the Shadow of the Erdtree expansion cannot be overstated in this evolution. It didn't just add content, it fundamentally restructured how we think about character progression and power scaling. The Erdtree blessing system created a parallel progression path that allowed builds previously constrained by stat limitations to flourish. New weapons didn't just provide alternatives to existing options, they enabled entirely new archetypes that redefined what was possible. The expansion served as a reset button on a meta that was growing stale, injecting vitality that has sustained the community through 2025 and beyond. Looking at these 9 builds collectively, patterns emerge that speak to the broader design philosophy of Elden Ring. From Software created a game where multiple paths to power exist simultaneously, where the hammer is just as valid as the scalpel, where magic and might can coexist or stand alone with equal effectiveness. This isn't accidental design, it's intentional craftsmanship that respects player agency and rewards investment in understanding. Every build we've discussed today works not because of exploits or oversights, but because the developers created systems robust enough to support diverse approaches to problem solving. The community's role in discovering and refining these builds represents one of gaming's great collaborative achievements. Thousands of players, each contributing small discoveries and optimizations, have collectively created a body of knowledge that rivals academic research in its thoroughness and rigor. The wikis, the build calculators, the frame data spreadsheets, the endless testing videos, all represent a community's dedication to understanding and mastering a game that respects such dedication. When you implement one of these builds, you're not just copying a template, you're participating in a tradition of knowledge sharing that defines the Souls community. Consider how your journey with these builds might unfold. Perhaps you'll start with the Blasphemous blade Immortal, its forgiving nature and overwhelming power carrying you through challenging content while you learn the game's rhythms. As your confidence grows, you might experiment with the Lightning Perfumer, discovering the satisfaction of space control and strategic positioning. The Twin Dancer might call to you when you're ready for pure mechanical expression, while the Colossal Bonk Lord offers a return to fundamentals that proves sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution. Each build teaches different lessons, develops different skills, and offers different perspectives on what it means to be powerful in the lands between. The future of Elden Ring's build meta remains bright as we move forward through 2025 and beyond. From Software's commitment to post-launch support, evidenced by continued balance patches and the possibility of additional content, ensures that the meta will continue evolving. New discoveries await, hidden synergies yet unexplored, combinations that might transform forgotten weapons into meta-defining powerhouses. The builds we've explored today represent the current pinnacle of optimization, but tomorrow might bring revelations that make them seem quaint by comparison. As we conclude this deep dive into Elden Ring's most powerful builds, remember that these configurations are starting points, not end points. The true joy of build crafting comes from taking these foundations and making them your own, adjusting and optimizing based on your playstyle, your preferences, your unique approach to challenge. Maybe you'll discover that dropping 5 points from vigor to boost damage aligns with your aggressive playstyle. Perhaps you'll find a talisman combination that nobody else has considered, unlocking new potential in established builds. The laboratory of the lands between remains open, and every player is a potential scientist discovering new truths about this intricate world. To everyone who's journeyed with us through this exploration of power, optimization, and creativity, thank you for your time and attention. If these builds help you overcome that boss you've been struggling with, if they reignite your passion for a game you thought you'd exhausted, if they simply provide entertainment and education about one of gaming's deepest systems, then we've succeeded in our mission. Keen Sylvan Lore exists to dive deep into the mechanics and mysteries that make our favorite games special, and Elden Ring represents perhaps the richest vein of such content we've ever explored. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to join our community of curious gamers who refuse to accept surface-level understanding. Hit that notification bell to catch our future investigations into gaming's hidden depths, and remember, in the lands between, knowledge isn't just power, it's the difference between victory and you died. Until next time, fellow Tarnished, may your builds be optimized, your invasions successful, and your journey to becoming Elden Lord filled with the joy of discovery. This has been Keen 7 Lore, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.